Power structures are different in different places and at different times. Autocratic states, enlightened states, citizen states. Power can shift. The role of statistics shifts with it. Statistics got its name as the science of the state because it was used by the autocrats of the day to exercise their power. How many men can we extract from this village to carry arms in our next war? How much tax can we levy to keep the coffers full? With force, any ruler can press men and extort taxes. The smart ruler works out how many men can be pressed and how much tax can be extorted this time to leave enough for when he wants to come back again next year, and the year after, and the year after that. For that, he needs facts, calculation, statistics. The successful emperor or despot knew how to run a census. He knew how to tally. He knew how to create a doomsday book. He knew how to collect records of births, marriages and deaths, of imports and exports, of money and tax and more. The statistician in the service of the powerful held a privileged position as counsellor with a special ability to inform decisions of state. It's interesting, however, that the word statistics came into common usage just as autocracy was falling out of favour in Western nations. As the divine right of kings, and occasionally queens, was challenged, new forms of government were tried. The Enlightenment provided a fresh way of looking at the world. So too was this statistics, this science of the state, transformed into the science of the new sources of power. Statistics shifted in usage from being about ascertaining the political strength of a state to being about an inquiry into the state of a country for the purposes of ascertaining the quantum of happiness enjoyed by its inhabitants and the means of its future improvement. The 19th century was the dawn of the era of evidence-based policy. The tools of statistical inquiry were turned to the service of the new enlightened constitutional governments. How can we use statistics to gain new understanding of the quantum of happiness enjoyed by the people and how their lot might be improved? The earlier theoretical insights of John Graunt, Thomas Bayes, Blaise Pascal, Carl Friedrich Gauss and others found ever-growing practical expression through members of the Royal Statistical Society and kindred spirits throughout the Victorian era and since. Those seeking to assess the case for change and give it voice would turn to statistics. Statistics would have a major part to play in the laws proposed by governments as ideas of state power shifted from controlling subjects to improving the lives of people. So too did the role of statistics. But this shift was not just about new ideas of the state, but more generally about a shift of power structures. Before the 19th century, power beyond the state rested with a small number of others: the church, large landowners, and the early plutocrats of the Industrial Revolution. As the 19th century progressed, the idea of the consumer gathered momentum, and throughout the 20th century, the power of the Industrial Revolution was increasingly channeled into the mass production of goods. The world of statistics had an impact here too, in the service of organisations seeking to satisfy these needs. A potent expression of this is the work of W. Edwards Deming and his role in the rebuilding of the Japanese economy after 1945. Statistics gave the new enlightened constitutional governments and consumer-orientated businesses and institutions a special kind of power. I think we're in the middle of a new transition. The implications of statistics will depend on events, but current directions call us to invest in new thinking about our ideas of statistics and how it makes an impact. The current shift in the idea of the state that is taking place in many parts of the world relates to the role of the citizen. In those countries where democracy is new, the idea of citizen power is seen regularly on our TV screens. We see it in demonstrations, in lengthy queues at polling stations, in Twitter-led uprisings. In those countries where democracy is older, the role of the citizen is also changing. The reality is still messy and unclear, but the rhetoric is creating new expectations. Devolution, decentralisation, localism all claim to move power closer to the citizen. We as citizens are being asked to choose which school, which hospital, which police and crime commissioner. Some see an Orwellian cloak masking a return to autocracy, a destruction of tried and tested mechanisms for democratic accountability, leaving a gap to be filled by new concentrations of power, power beyond reach of carefully constructed checks and balances that respect a rich diversity of interests. On the other hand, in no less a way than in new democracies, a new force has been unleashed. The rhetoric has created an expectation. At the same time, the internet, giving more ability for citizens to gather information and to transact directly and immediately with the state, is a game-changing force. Democracy is being democratized. Its power is expanding from the few elected as representatives. Democracy is now continuously engaging the many those elected seek to represent, not just resting on a voice at the ballot box once every few years. In recent years, the Freedom of Information Act, the move to open data, the Statistics and Registration Service Act have all been expressed as giving power to the citizen, information available for the public good. Information is no longer viewed as the property of the ruler used to control. Information is no longer viewed as the property of the government acting as your representative. Information is the property of the citizen. Similarly, the rise of service industries, replacing manufacturing industries as the core of economic activity, is associated with the move of power from the producer of goods to the user of services. Technology is further transforming the nature of the relationship, with consumers having the ability to co-design the goods and services they receive. Here too, some see the smiling faces of Apple, Facebook, Google and Tesco as a cover for concentration of power. But as consumers, we've been told it's we who should have the power, and we are getting more vocal in demanding it. Information is at the heart of these changes. The information now in the hands, or potentially in the hands of citizens and consumers, is reshaping the nature of the relationship between citizen and state, consumer and business. The information revolution can take power from the provider and give it to the user. But if, for whatever reason, that power is not exercised by citizen consumers, the vacuum will be filled by others with a vested interest in using information to accumulate that power for themselves. In other words, in today's world, statistics can give citizens a special kind of power. But to exercise that power, we need the ability to analyse information, to be confident and competent in statistics. That requires both a personal competence and intermediaries we trust to do the heavy lifting on our behalf, where we do not have the time or energy to do it ourselves. As citizens, we'll be looking to institutions that protect our interests by helping us access the information we need and helping us judge whether a claim can be relied upon or not. The Information Commissioner, Which Magazine, the UK Statistics Authority, Full Fact, the Royal Statistical Society, and many others have fundamental roles to play. We are still at an early stage in thinking through the implications. There are lots of horror stories. In Ben Goldacre's Bad Science, for example. However, as each month passes, and helped in no small measure by campaigning voices such as his, the power of statistics is becoming more and more available to the citizen. There is a flow that is running ever faster. A pathway is being built to a future where as citizens we can access, either directly or through others, the full range of data relevant to our individual situation. As Ben Goldacre himself says, unmediated access to niche expertise is the future. David Hand put it this way: what statistics does is enable knowledge of the many to be focused down to improve the lot of the one. Signs on each bus stop predict how long my bus is going to be, giving me the chance to decide whether to wait or start walking. Dramatic improvements in weather forecasting tell me the chance of rain or shine in my locality or anywhere I might be going. The information relevant to me is available to me. I can use it without difficulty. In other areas, the necessary skills may not yet be so readily to hand. I want my doctor to give a view of what is the best treatment given my particular situation, but I also want to understand the balance of risks, of alternative options. I want to take the decision based on the evidence. How well equipped am I to do this? Court cases sometimes rest on the ability of a jury to comprehend the likelihood of a rare event occurring by chance. This is a scary responsibility. How well are jurors prepared and supported? Power is shifting from producers of information to its users. In the case of bus trips and weather forecasts, the users are getting it in forms they like and can use it. In the case of medicine, most people seem to like the opportunity, but maybe do not yet have the resources or skills to make best of it. In other cases, like the law, the jury is perhaps still out. The data landscape is evolving rapidly. Our statistical brains need to be nurtured if we are to thrive in these new habitats. The roots of the word statistics and the story of how statistics affects our lives provide pointers about how we might proceed.